The chair lays out House Bill 4759 and recognizes Representative Campos to explain the bill.
My apologies. Thank you for the opportunity to lay out House Bill 4759 relating to an attack by a dangerous dog, increasing a criminal penalty and placing more responsibility on the dog owner and the local animal authority, also known as Animal Care Services. On April 24th, '81-year-old Ramon Najera was mauled to death by vicious dogs in San Antonio when he and his wife were visiting a seamstress to get his security guard uniform altered. Upon leaving the seamstress home, a neighbor's dog viciously attacked Mr. Naranjo's wife. While attempting to save her life, the vicious dogs turned on him. Mr. Naranjo was on kidney dialysis and had a shunt in his arm for treatments. The dogs grabbed onto the shunt in his arm, which caused Mr. Naranjo to bleed to death. When first responders arrived, they were also attacked by the vicious dogs. This had been the dog's third attack documented by the San Antonio Animal Care Services. Mr. Naranjo's death and the attack of 5 others who were injured brought attention to a statute restriction local animals authorities encounter. The victim of witness must file a notarized affidavit with the animal authority before it can launch an investigation. Dangerous dogs are allowed to be returned to the owners if the affidavit is not filed, which is what happened in the Najera case. HB 4759 seeks to remove the required victim's affidavit for more effective and immediate collaboration between animal authorities, local authorities, and the court system to ensure the safety and well-being of all citizens. In the same way that domestic violence cases are still investigated and pursued despite a fearful victim who is coerced or intimidated to drop the charges against the abuser, the local prosecutor can continue their case to ensure others are not victimized without an affidavit. HB 4759 amends Section 822 of the Health and Safety Code, requiring animal authorities to investigate when a report on a dangerous dog is made without a sworn affidavit. Added language will lay out factors to be considered when a dog may be determined dangerous by animal authorities, and once determined dangerous, the animal authority must notify law enforcement, the local county or district attorney, and the owner of the dogs, dangerous dog owners. If an affidavit is completed, the witness information must remain anonymous. After the first dangerous dog owner's first conviction, a second indictment of the same offense will increase to a third-degree felony. This case was brought to me by the family in San Antonio, and it happens a lot. I had previously filed a bill that increased a Class C misdemeanor to a Class B because a constituent in my district got bit by a dangerous dog 2 times within 5 years because she walks to church every day. And so this is a real issue throughout Texas. I know in Houston, there were 5 deaths that have occurred since 2022, and there were 2 in Dallas. It's a statewide issue. And so I am a dog lover. I've got 3 German Shepherds, so I know what it is to be a responsible dog owner. And this is to make sure that dog owners take responsibility and train their dogs appropriately and make sure that they are not vicious dogs terrorizing neighborhoods, which is what these dogs have been doing for a very long time. There were 112 calls made to this house. And so this needs to stop, and it's a bill that's needed, and I believe that had this bill been in place, I believe that Mr. Naranjo would still be with us today. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm here.
Questions, members? Dr. Alverson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative, thank you for filing this bill. I have 2 Rhodesian Ridgebacks at home, and although my girls are very sweet, they're also very protective. Those dogs are bred to hunt lions in Africa, and they can also make short work of baboons and other creatures that are a threat to farmers and children in particular in South Africa. And so I also know what it is to have a properly trained dog. I mean, it frustrates me that I think dogs can be a deadly weapon.
Absolutely.
And I think there are far few, not enough dog owners that recognize the fact that dogs can kill people as easily as a gun.
Right.
And if they're not properly trained and they're not properly supervised, I think then that dog owner should be guilty of assault with a deadly weapon, especially in a situation where there's a previous incident and they knew that that dog had the potential to do harm. And I want to be clear, I don't think it's the dog's fault.
Right.
This is not about punishing dogs, but this is about punishing people who can't be responsible in owning and having man's best friend turn into their neighbor's worst nightmare. So I appreciate you bringing this bill, and I look forward to supporting you.
Thank you so much for that. And again, I am a dog lover. I mean, when I retire, I want to get a dog rescue because I love all dogs, but it's just about owners being responsible and holding our local authorities responsible so they can recognize what's going on in the neighborhoods. And if there is a dog that continuously has issues, a habitual, we need to take responsibility and make note of it. And the problem is if someone gets bit, you have to file an affidavit. Well, so many people don't want to do that because they don't want retaliation from their neighbors. So they don't file the affidavit, and then the dog can be released back to the owner, and then it happens again. And it's a vicious cycle that needs to stop. So thank you for your support. I greatly appreciate it.
Representative Jones?
Rep Campos, what happens, I see where unless the animal authorities have to report it, what happens if they don't report it? I didn't see where that was in here.
I mean, if they don't report it, the owners have the ability to, get the dog back once they pay the fees or what have you. So the authority, what they should do is keep track of these vicious dogs. And if there's an incident more than once and they need to, take it to the local authority, whether it's the prosecutor, the DA's office, and allow the individual to, press those charges.
And you're correct that they don't care what domestic violence victims, like how they feel about it. There's actually special units that jump in when the victim doesn't cooperate. But as a person who, when I was younger, was terrified of dogs, and the person who had the really mean dogs was my grandfather, and attacked my grandmother twice. And my grandfather really loved his dogs, his German Shepherds. But so I just want to thank you for filing this bill because there are actually people who are afraid of dogs. So is this a new file? Has
Yes,
this
ma'am, yes,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
thank
Other
you.
questions, members? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Vice Chair Campos. I know you and I have been talking, and I appreciate continuing to talk. I've heard complaint, I've also heard habitual, and just in my legal mind, those mean very different things to me.
Okay.
Of a complaint of I'm afraid of dogs versus so-and-so was bit by a dog, or habitual doesn't mean 2 bites before. And so I just want to say that I'm going to want to continue to work on just making sure the language is clear as to
Absolutely.
when somebody can intervene, when they can't intervene, if it's just a complaint or an actual incident. And so thank you for already talking with me. I look forward to talking more.
Absolutely, thank you so much.
Other questions, members? Representative Jones?
Yeah, with what Rep. Johnson just brought up, so are you guys discussing whether, if someone is afraid, I don't know, maybe the dog growled at him or something, or lunged at him and somebody was able to stop it, does your bill require that the dog actually attack or bite somebody
If
before?
it bites somebody, if it causes them to go to the hospital and or death. But what I have found in San Antonio is there's a lot of complaints made about the same dogs over and over. And because that affidavit is not filed, the dogs get returned to the owners. So we want to eliminate that process and make sure that the animal authorities keep track of what's going on with these dangerous dogs and, you know, not release them and send it off to the DA's office to hopefully press charges so that these dogs don't continue to come out and bite people and or kill people.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, members? Okay, we'll begin our public hearing and reserve your right to close. The chair calls Trevor Nahara. Up next will be Raymond Nahara. And I show that you're Trevor Nahara, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that you're representing yourself and you're for the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, please begin your testimony.
Committee, Vice, and Chairwoman, thank you for your time. I'd like to tell you about Mr. Ramon Nahera. He's my grandpa. On February 24th, he was mauled and killed by a pack of dogs, as Ms. Liz Campos had stated. I do support this bill, and effectively, I do believe that had this bill been enacted prior to this event or many other events that I've heard of over these past couple months, is that he would be alive today, or at least at the very respect that other people would not be in fear of very similar dogs that cause us to live in fear of just walking down the street. I do believe that this bill essentially gives more ability to not only the citizen, but the authorities at hand to make the decisions that they actually need to make. One thing that I wanted to make a mention on is like how they were saying about needing to go to the hospital. My thought over that was requiring medical attention, because not all the time do you need to actually go to a hospital to apply any sort of medical attention. I would like to just say, over the past couple months, I've received a number of other stories all around the city, all around Texas, effectively saying the same thing. More likely than not, it's an elderly or youth, and they are in fear of their neighbor. They're in fear of retaliation. So I'm extremely happy to hear that we can have anonymous reporting, because things like this have been reported before. 149 calls to this house, whether it's CPS, whether it's just the place around it, whether it's animals or anything that has to do with making sure the safety of the public health of that general street. I think a lot needs to be done. I think this is an amazing direction that we're heading into, to allow more ability for the citizens and the authority to make their approaches known and affected. But I also believe, and I really hope my city is listening and really listening to what I'm saying here, because things were said. You know, they want to say, you know, stop and say something. You know, be a good neighbor. Tell your neighbors what's good and what not to do, right? Well, these neighbors did do that. And that's one of the issues here, is that I believe the city is also essentially, they didn't take the right steps to do what they needed to do. police officer says, well, ACS needs to do the affidavit. ACS says, well, no, hold on, it's the police officer that needs to do the affidavit. Okay, well, they didn't know, so they didn't even put in an affidavit. Now that person's lawyer drops because they don't see a reason why they need to pursue it, because there's no pursuant on the actual infraction. So for me, I do believe this is a great direction, but I also do believe that there's more to be done. I do support this bill, and I really hope every single one of you will join us in support. Thank you.
Questions, members?
I just want to say
Representative
thank you for being here. I'm sorry, I interrupted, I'm sorry about that.
Representative Albertson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Nahada, I'm really sorry about the loss of your grandfather. In your experience, I guess, and in your, you said there were others that had reached out to you.
Yes, sir. Many others.
Are these dogs that people in the neighborhood know about? I mean, in other words, are these sort of, oh man, that's the first time that ever happened. I don't know whatever got into my dog that day. You mentioned that it was a group of dogs that attacked your grandfather. Were these were neighborhood dogs?
I don't know if I would call them neighborhood dogs, as in my term of that would probably be nicer dogs or friendly dogs. But these were dogs that were told to be kept within their confines.
And they
that
weren't?
They effectively were not.
So-
They jumped over the fence, I believe, and attacked unprovoked.
So were they known to be aggressive?
Yes, they were.
So there had been previous complaints about
Yes.
them or previous incidents?
Yes, sir. There had been two dog bites prior to that with the same dogs.
Two dog bites
Yes,
by the
sir.
same dogs prior to what happened?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And nothing was done?
Yes, sir. And that's why, I really genuinely believe that this bill is impeccably a great direction to be going into. But like I'm saying, and I hope my city is hearing me, is that I believe steps weren't taken to essentially rectify that. Because this bill is helpful, but, I mean, they said something about it. This is in record, and nothing was done for it. And from what ACS is telling us is that they either don't have the funds, they don't have the personnel, or they're scared to go down that street. They're scared to go walk down the street to do the things for us. That's why they want us to have more capability.
Well, we're going to make sure that they hear you. And again, I'm sorry for your grandfather, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that loss, but we're going to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else.
And I really hope if this pushes through, that this will lessen the encounters and or the ability for citizens just to simply walk freely. Because right now, people are scared to walk their own streets, and for me, that's a civil infraction of their rights.
I don't know what a neighbor's supposed to do. I mean, are you supposed to walk the streets with a gun and shoot at somebody's dog as soon as it tries to attack you? I
Exactly.
mean, that's the society we're living in right now, is what it sounds
And it
like.
shouldn't be.
I agree. Well, we're going to help you out.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Other questions, members? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair calls Raymond Naharo. And up next will be Jared Mears. I show your name is Raymond Naharo,
Raymond Naheda, yes.
and you're representing yourself, and you're for the bill, is that correct?
Yes,
All
Chairman
right,
Click.
please begin.
Chairman Click and committee, yes, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Raymond Naheda. I'm the son of Ramon Naheda, the eldest son. Like we said, my son was saying before, on February 24th, my father was viciously attacked, mauled, and killed. Yet, while he's saving his wife from being attacked, the dogs, went to him. And unfortunately, the dogs attacked his left arm, which had a shunt. And with that shunt, it just opened up and he bled out very quickly. He didn't have he went unconscious and he just didn't have the strength. He went down. So dogs continued to maul on him after he was down and unconscious. And my stepmother, Janie, she witnessed all this. And she stayed still, watching the dogs terrorize into my dad. This strategy was a landmine set up due to statutory restrictions. The dog owners were cited two prior attacks before this. By law, the ACS quarantined the dogs, the owners paid their fees, and the dogs were returned just right before my dad and my stepmom were attacked. So there was something previously done, but the affidavits weren't submitted. So that was the key. That's the gap that we have in our current law right now. No affidavits were submitted by the victims, so there's no other investigations. It doesn't go forth. There's no follow-ups. There's a few, like I say, regulations to the dog owners, but those regulations weren't adhered, and that's why they got out. They were supposed to be tethered. They were supposed to be behind a tall fence and muzzled if they were out. And that didn't happen. The dog owners were very, very, very irresponsible, so they need to be accountable for that. As my son was saying earlier, see something, say something. Between April 2020 to February 24th of the day of the attack, neighbors reported more than 150 complaints of these dog owners, from various complaints from, like from 911 to like all kinds of complaints. But the two that were most noted were the bites, dog bites. But so they had previous infractions against them. So what I say is now is that, what if the ACS officers or SAPD could have designated dangerous dogs after a serious bite? The penalties for careless dog owners would have been stronger, and the dogs removed from the homeowners. My dad would probably still be here today. The current law to classify a dog as dangerous requires a sworn statement, like we were talking before. This process adds unnecessary burden to the victim of a dog bite. ACS should be given full authority to launch investigations without sworn statements. The requirement to file a affidavit adds more emotional, financial, and administrative stress on the victims. The financial burden is to pay for the statement. There are language barriers to the citizens of San Antonio. There's a lot of Hispanics that don't have the English language and to fill out the documentations. The fear of retaliation from the dog owners, that's a major factor when you're talking about your neighbor with the dogs. And then there's emotional stress for when there are family ties. So what if ACS had the full authority to launch investigations with a previous dog bite without a sworn statement? My father probably would have been here with us today.
Your time has expired.
Okay, thank you. So I just want to say one more statement is that please pass this bill, 4759.
Thank you. Chair call, any questions, members?
I do.
Representative Campos?
I just wanted Mr. Nahara to finish what he was talking about. Sir, if you'd like, you could go ahead and finish your statement. I'd like to hear the rest of it.
Thank you. So my statement is about the rest of the bill. HB 4759 addresses gaps and makes our community safer for irresponsible dog owners. Making changes to the current law takes the burden off reporting of the victims of a dog bite injury, increases penalties to repeat offenses, expedites the process to related classifying dangerous dogs, and empowers animal control to deem a dog dangerous when any of these happen, which is a serious bodily injury, someone is transported to a hospital, a police report on the incident is written up, and an owner is arrested, or there's a sworn affidavit anonymously allowed. So my father and my stepmother were visited to this neighborhood, unaware of the dangers that lurked from the irresponsible dog owners, that seemingly quiet neighborhood. So no human should lose his life in this horrific, senseless manner. My father lived protecting his country, and he died protecting his loved one. We hope that his death would have more meaning to bring changes to this dangerous dog laws. So I hope that my father's death will motivate you to vote for this bill and save lives in the future. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just want to thank you so much for being here and taking the courage. I know it's been really hard, but It means a lot, and I'm hoping we can get this passed in honor of your father. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Representative Campos.
Chair calls Jared Mears. I show your name registered as Jared Mears, and you're representing the city of Houston and BARC,
That's correct.
Animal Regulation and Care, and you're against the bill, is that correct?
That is correct in its current form. First, I'd like to give you my condolences. Chair Click and members of the committee, the city of Houston appreciates the opportunity to testify on HB 4759. We believe the bill has good intentions, and we fully support strengthening the penalty for an offense under 822.044, attack by a dangerous dog, for a second conviction of that offense. However, there are multiple concerning things within the bill that would need to be addressed. HB 4759 would allow an animal control agency to determine whether a dog is dangerous by subjectively observing and documenting the aggressive behavior of the dog, or merely by examining the sworn statements of any witnesses. The legislation does not specify or require context, such as whether the dog was outside of its enclosure, which is what it's in the definition of a dangerous dog. In addition, no clear standard is articulated. For example, is an unprovoked attack required, or are multiple acts of aggression sufficient? The legislation instead lists several circumstances that would create the presumption of a dog being dangerous, such as any incident that occurs that results in serious bodily injury, transport of an individual to a hospital, filing of a police report, or the arrest of the owner. While these are helpful with the context of other criteria, with the exception of serious bodily injury, they are problematic as individual indicators that a dog is dangerous. In other words, the transport of a person, the filing of a police report, or the arrest of the owner do not in and of themselves mean that the dog's actions meet the definition of a dangerous dog. Serious bodily injury is addressed in Chapter 822, and there's a specific judicial procedure in place for such cases. The dog may be destroyed after a hearing and an order from a judge. HB 4759 is also concerning because it conflicts with the existing rights of the owner to appeal a dangerous dog designation. Under the proposed legislation, an animal control agency would be required to immediately notify law enforcement and a county district attorney if a dog is determined to be dangerous by the agency. Immediate notification negates the appeals process in Chapter 822, which allows for 15 days for an owner to file an appeal before the dangerous dog determination is final. Animal enforcement agencies already can and do report incidents in which criminal activity is suspected to the appropriate agencies and are required by existing law to keep an updated registry of all dogs declared dangerous in their jurisdiction. This information is available to any prosecutor or law enforcement agency. HB 4759 would not add anything new to the information that is already available to prosecutors. It also includes a provision that would protect a witness's identity if that witness has given a sworn statement. While we applaud the intent of this provision to incentivize witnesses to come forward, we believe the provision would result in fewer prosecutions. In our experience, the witness is often providing the essential testimony in these matters, and prosecutors require that witnesses must be subject to cross-examination in any hearing, especially in an appeal by an owner. It's been our experience that it is very difficult to successfully prevail in the hearing if the primary evidence is merely an affidavit. In summary, while we believe HB 47459 is well-intentioned, we cannot support the legislation for the reasons articulated above. The proposed changes to Chapter 822 do not provide sufficiently specific criteria that would support a dangerous dog designation. Further failing to account for mitigating circumstances, HB 4759 does not change the definition of a dangerous dog in 822.041. We believe any dangerous dog declaration made under HB 4759's more subjective criteria would not survive an appeal. Animal control agencies do investigate these cases and can make appropriate designations without this legislation. Houston appreciates the hard work of Representative Campos has put into this bill and her advocacy on behalf of those who have been injured by dangerous dogs in this state. We also appreciate the efforts of this committee toward public health matters. We respectfully request that this bill not move forward, and we look forward to continuing to work with you throughout this legislative session.
Questions, members? Representative Johnson?
Thank you for coming to testify. I've always heard your dog can have one bite. If it bites somebody once, it bites somebody the second time, that's it. Is that a local city of Houston ordinance, or where am I
No,
getting
ma'am,
that
it's
from?
just a misconception.
That's a misconception, so that's not a law anywhere?
It is.
Is it what people who are good pet owners kind of,
A lot of people assume that, yes.
but that's not a law?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Other questions, members? Thank you.
May I say one thing? I want everybody to understand, and I don't know how other cities in the state do this, but Houston, we actually do enact dangerous dog investigations without a witness testimony. We would use the officer's testimony, which it sounds like there was an argument in San Antonio about who was supposed to do the affidavit. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, it's up to the victim to file the affidavit, and if they don't file it, the dog can be returned to the owner.
Okay. I'm just letting you all know that actually an officer can file the affidavit themselves and initiate the dangerous dog investigation. So it would be up to the agency.
I just have, I just want to ask, I know there was been 5 maulings that caused death in Houston since 2022.
Mhm.
Are you aware of those?
Well, they were actually in Harris County, not in the city limits of Houston, so I didn't investigate any of those.
So let's just say that there's a dog that's running around and doesn't really have an owner, but is in the neighborhood, and you get calls about this dog. What do you do at that point?
Well, depending on the circumstances, we answer our calls based on the severity of the situation. So if somebody calls and says, hey, this dog has me cornered up, I need assistance immediately, that would be something that we would go to. But if somebody calls and says, hey, this dog's just running around, due to funding constraints, it would be very difficult for us to get out there because there are so many calls whereby dogs are going after people.
It just seems that it happens a lot. Even dog owners, they let their dogs out. And, I know a neighbor of mine, it happened to her twice within 5 years, and she got a portion of her leg bit off. And the animal authorities had been called out. And because she didn't file that affidavit, the dog was released and, bit her a second time. So, I think it's a real issue, throughout Texas. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a quick question.
Representative Tinderholt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Simple question. If some of or all of your issues were addressed, is there a world where you would be for this bill and not against it?
I think there are some things that do need to be addressed.
But if those are addressed, would you be for the bill?
It's possible. It just depends on what exactly we're talking about is addressed. But I would love the opportunity to work with you. That would be great.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
Ready. Thank you. Chair calls Richard Nahara. Okay, I show you registered as Richard Nahara, and you're representing yourself and you're for the bill, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, please begin.
Okay, Madam Chair, thank you. Board members, thank you for having us here. Again, I am for the bill. My name is Richard Nahera. I live in San Antonio, where my father, Raymond Nahera, was killed February 24th by 3 violent, aggressive, vicious dogs and 2 irresponsible owners of the dogs. I support the House Bill 4759, that gives the ACS we're in San Antonio, the authority to investigate dog attacks and increase the penalty and the liability of dangerous, aggressive dog owners. Violent dog attacks are not just a problem where I live, but they're a problem all over Texas, as we discussed earlier. Some dog owners throughout Texas are weaponizing terrier breed dogs to fight, attack, kill, and destroy life. Please help make the community just a little bit safer. We need help passing this bill to put more liability on aggressive dog owners. I am for the bill.
Question, members? Ready. Thank you for being here and sharing your story. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on, for, or against House Bill 4759? The chair recognizes Representative Campos to close.
HB 4759 allows,
I registered, but I didn't sign to testify, but I'd like to if possible.
We are running out of time here to go to the floor here at 11.
Councilmember Karen Mendelson?
Hang on just a second.
They have 1 minute each.
Okay, you're going to have 1 minute each because we have to go to the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Kara Mendelson. I'm a council member for the city of Dallas, where I chair the budget committee. I'm the vice chair of public safety, and I'm a member of the ad hoc committee on legislative
And
affairs.
You're against the bill, is that correct?
Testifying against, yes. I'm an animal lover and advocate. I have 2 large rescue dogs myself, and I will say, though, we have to be realistic about the need for public safety. The city of Dallas appreciates the legislature's support in wanting to address dangerous dogs in our community. However, we feel the current statute effectively addresses this process. This bill has 5 main deficiencies. First, it's denying due process. Second, it's failing to provide a reasonable and clear standard to determine if the dog is a danger. It conceals information that could taint the fairness of the sensitive process where anyone could say anything. Some of the language is vague, meaning it doesn't match the action of the evidence of a dangerous dog. For instance, when it says transport to a hospital, a person could have fainted in the Texas heat and never actually had any contact with a dog. When it talks about filing a police report, the filing doesn't prove guilt, it's an allegation.
Your time has expired, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
wait, this one's not registered.
You're just gonna have to tell her that we'll have to be, she can put comments.
Okay. Ma'am, we're running out of time right now to go to the floor. We have to adjourn before going to the floor. I would encourage you to input your comments in the public portal. The chair recognizes Representative Campos to close.
HB 4759 allows for immediate action from the local animal authorities in order for our communities, especially low-income and densely populated, to feel safe and free to walk their neighborhoods without fear. We must strengthen the confidence in the protection of people, especially from dangerous dogs and irresponsible dog owners. I respectfully ask for your support to vote this bill out of committee in honor of the late Ramon Najera. Thank you, and I close.
If there's no objection, House Bill 4759 will be left pending. The chair hears no objection. House Bill 4759 is left pending without objection.